Hey guys, tonight we wake up as a king in the Middle Ages, which sounds like history's strangest lottery until you notice the room is freezing, your blanket smells like smoke, and six people are waiting to dress you like a decorative sofa with anxiety issues. Outside, church bells groan over the town, horses stomp in the courtyard, and somewhere a cook is ruining breakfast for the most dangerous guests you will ever meet. You are no longer the quiet prince or the spare relative everyone ignored while arguing over venison. You are the king now. Congratulations. You probably won't survive this, but at least you get a shiny hat heavy enough for neck training. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you are listening from and what your local time is, because somewhere it is midnight, somewhere it is dawn, and a rooster has discovered taxes. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you do is not rule. That would be too simple, and medieval politics hates simple things the way cats hate baths. First, you have to be seen becoming king. You must be displayed, blessed, dressed, watched, and quietly judged by people who own castles and have never said, "Maybe I am being unreasonable." In the Middle Ages, power is ceremony, prayer, rumor, family drama, and armed men pretending they are only here for the music. Servants lace you into linen, silk, fur, and so many layers that medieval portraits suddenly make sense. They are not dignified, they simply cannot bend. Someone whispers titles at you: guardian of roads, defender of the faith, chosen by God. It sounds grand until your stomach sounds like a trapped goat. You walk through a cold passage toward the church. Outside, the town waits in muddy excitement. Medieval kingship is not always golden halls and perfect banners. Often it is forests, markets, monasteries, rough roads, smoky kitchens, and castles full of nobles who smile as if their teeth are hiding knives. Everyone wants to see if you look strong, holy, and not ready to faint. At the church doors, bishops and nobles stand in strict order, because rank in the Middle Ages is basically a seating chart with swords. A mainstream historical fact settles over the morning. Medieval coronations often include anointing with holy oil, echoing biblical kingship and giving royal authority a sacred glow. The oil matters, the oath matters, the crown matters. Nothing says stable government like everyone silently panicking over who stands closer to the altar. You kneel on stone cold enough to make your knees reconsider monarchy. A great churchman asks if you will defend the church, keep peace, uphold justice, protect widows and orphans, and preserve ancient rights. You say yes, because this is not the moment to ask for bullet points. The oath sounds beautiful, but every promise is a problem wearing a velvet cloak. Keeping peace means stopping barons from settling arguments with fire, while preserving customs so old nobody remembers who invented them. The nobles watch you swear. Some want a strong king. Some want a weak king so they can rule their lands like tiny crown wearing thunderclouds. Some want whatever gives them more land by Thursday. Medieval loyalty is warm, noble, poetic, and negotiable after lunch. Historians still argue whether coronation in many medieval kingdoms actually made a person king, or simply confirmed a claim already created by blood, election, conquest, or elite agreement. You can feel that question circling the church like a nervous pigeon. If your father named you heir, is that enough? If the nobles accept you, does that settle it? If the bishop anoints you, does heaven stamp the form? And if your cousin has 300 armed riders, does theology become more flexible? Then comes the oil. It touches your head, maybe your hands, maybe your chest, depending on local custom. It is cool and fragrant, and the church seems to breathe in at once. You are being set apart from ordinary people, who are at least allowed to sit down without starting constitutional tension. The choir sings, Latin rises into the rafters. Half the crowd understands it, and the rest nod wisely anyway, because pretending to understand Latin is one of Europe's oldest team sports. A quirky tidbit appears quietly here in England. The small golden coronation spoon used for anointing survived from the 12th century, while many other royal objects were later destroyed. A spoon outlived crowns, swords, and several giant egos. Useful royal wisdom. Be like the spoon, shiny when needed, sacred when convenient, and small enough that angry people forget to smash you. Then the crown is lifted, You hear cloth shifting, mail rings whispering, and someone coughing at the worst holy moment. The crown settles on your head, and you understand why kings and paintings look tired. This is not jewelry. This is taxes, harvests, treaties, grudges, cousins, border raids, suspicious bishops, and one baron with a beard so rebellious it should be watched by guards. The crowd acclaims you with whatever words sound safest. You rise and process toward the hall, where the feast waits like a battlefield with gravy. Nobles kneel to offer homage. They place their hands in yours, swear loyalty, and gaze up with expressions that say, "I am faithful," while their eyebrows add, depending on policy. Unfortunately, half the men are named William, Robert, or Henry, and the other half are called something of somewhere. Now comes generosity. A king must give gifts, offices, robes, coins, hunting rights, pardons, and warm smiles that cost nothing but may later be used against you. Loyalty is not powered by vibes alone. Every gift says, "I see you, I value you. Please do not rebel before winter." But every reward creates someone disappointed, usually with an ancient claim hidden in a chest. So your first day teaches the basic rule of medieval kingship: look sacred, speak carefully, give wisely, trust slowly, and never assume the crown protects the head beneath it. You sit at the high table while minstrels play, cups shine in candlelight, and everyone toasts your long reign with suspicious enthusiasm. Beyond the hall, messengers already ride through damp roads, carrying news to towns, abbeys, border castles, and rivals who will read it twice. You lift your cup. Your hand is steady because it has to be. Tonight you are king. Tomorrow you must feed the realm. Tomorrow arrives with the emotional sensitivity of a tax collector kicking open a door. You have barely finished being crowned. Your scalp still remembers the crown like an expensive bruise, and already a clerk appears with accounts. Not a sword, not a war map, not even a pastry. Accounts. Grain in one village, missing sheep in another, bridges broken, rents delayed, coins clipped, and one note about a goose belonging to 3 men. Welcome to government. Breakfast ruined by paperwork. You quickly discover that a medieval kingdom does not run on glory. It runs on bread, onions, and whatever can be convinced to grow before winter arrives like a rude landlord. Your coronation made you look holy, but harvests decide whether people keep calling you Your Grace. A mainstream historical fact settles beside you like an accountant. Most people in medieval Europe live in rural communities and work the land, so royal power depends heavily on agriculture, local dues, labor obligations, and keeping the food cycle from collapsing into mud. You step into the courtyard where carts creak under barley and rye. The smell is damp wood, horse breath, smoke, wool, and yesterday's all refusing to move on emotionally. Your steward explains that last year's rain came late. One village lost seed grain to mold. Another says a lord's men took too much labor, and a third swears the royal miller cheats everyone by keeping a thumb on the scale. You nod wisely because kings must look wise, even when their main thought is, "Could someone please bring bread?" So your first order is simple: inspect the granaries. This does not sound heroic. No minstrel will sing, "Behold the noble king checked the sacks for weevils." Yet famine is a dangerous enemy in your realm, and unlike a rival prince, famine does not even wear a recognizable family crest. If grain prices rise, towns grumble. If towns grumble, merchants hide goods. If merchants hide goods, rumors grow little legs and run everywhere. Bad porridge can become constitutional crisis with alarming speed. Historians still argue whether medieval rulers are best seen as active economic managers or mostly crisis responders, pushed into action by famine, war, weather, and angry communities with practical complaints. From where you stand, the answer feels like, yes, unfortunately. You are expected to be sacred, brave, generous, just, and somehow aware of how much oats remain 40 miles away. Divine right is wonderful, but it does not update inventory. Your officials spread parchment and wax tablets across a table. They explain royal income, rents from crown lands, tolls from markets and bridges, fines from courts, town payments, feudal aids, customs duties, and emergency taxes everyone hates with the passion of a goose denied bread. Medieval taxation is not smooth. It is more like persuading suspicious people to admit what they own while neighbors listen carefully. Very soothing. Like doing taxes in a candlelit barn while armed relatives argue and someone's pig escapes. You ride out because kingship has to be visible. A king who stays indoors becomes a rumor wearing slippers. The road, however, is not really a road. It is a long argument with mud, and birds judge you from branches. Fields stretch in strips because many villages use open field farming, with families holding scattered pieces in communal fields. From the saddle, it looks like someone dropped a patchwork blanket and taxed it. To the villagers, though, every strip means memory, right hunger, duty, and next year's bread. At the village edge, peasants gather. They are cautious, curious, and not impressed by shiny accessories. They do not need sparkle. They need the bridge fixed. A reeve speaks for them. The Lord Steward demands extra labor. Wolves took lambs near the wood. The mill pond floods the meadow. Nobody says supply chain, because the Middle Ages have been spared business podcasts, but that is what you are staring at. Grain must reach mills. Flour must reach ovens. Salt must reach kitchens. Iron must reach smiths. Break one link, and the kingdom sits down in the mud and asks whether your cousin might be better at bridges. You listen. You confirm old customs where you can. You order inquiries where you must. Promises are dangerous little birds. Once released, they fly everywhere and come back at the worst possible time. Still, food and justice are twins in this world. People will tolerate hierarchy, bad weather, awkward shoes, and even a king whose coronation wave looked like he was shooing a bee if the old rhythms feel protected. A quirky tidbit rattles in the granary shadows. Medieval farming and medical texts sometimes recommend charms, saintly appeals, and confident recipes for protecting crops, animals, and weather luck. A farmer might pray to a saint for rain, hang a protective sign in the barn, and still complain that the neighbor's cow has an evil eye. Medieval practicality and medieval magic sit on the same bench. By noon you understand the brutal royal math. Your treasurer wants silver. Your soldiers want pay. Your builders want timber. Towns want privileges. Peasants want seed left after dues. If you squeeze too hard, the land weakens. If you ask too little, the crown weakens. You must become a careful hand on an old scale, which would be easier if everyone stopped placing chickens and lawsuits on it. Back at the castle, merchants arrive smelling faintly of wool, leather, and profit. They ask for safer roads, predictable tolls, and confirmation of market rights. Towns produce coin, craft goods, credit, and gossip at frightening speed. Give them a charter and they praise your wisdom. Raise tolls too much and every merchant becomes a legal philosopher with a loud voice. So you authorize bridge repairs, order grain reserves checked before winter, and tell your clerks to investigate the miller. It is not glamorous. It will not look good on a tapestry unless the embroiderer is unusually passionate about drainage. But this is ruling. Majesty must pass through kitchens, barns, toll gates, muddy lanes, and annoyed villagers before it becomes real. As evening lowers, smoke rises from cottages and the bakehouse warms the yard. You remember the cold oil of coronation, the spoon that survived grander treasures, the nobles watching your every blink. Now you hear another kingdom, oxen shifting, millstones turning, children calling near the well, clerks scratching numbers by lamplight. If the realm eats, it may sleep. If it sleeps, it may obey. And if it obeys, perhaps tomorrow you can face the worst problem: lords with castles, grudges, and far too much free time. Morning drags you from bed with the tender mercy of a tax collector knocking during breakfast. Yesterday, grain taught you that a kingdom must eat. Today, castles teach you that a kingdom must not be eaten by its own nobles, which feels unfair, because you have barely warmed the throne, and everyone is treating loyalty like a free trial. You ride through pale mist toward the fortress of one of your greatest lords. The road is mostly mud with ambitions. Your horse dislikes it, your boots dislike it, and behind you a clerk protects royal documents while reconsidering literacy. Ahead, the castle rises on a hill, gray and serious, its towers glaring down like stone eyebrows. Technically, the lord inside serves you. Technically, soup is a drink. These distinctions matter. A mainstream historical fact settles beside the hooves. Much of medieval politics depends on personal bonds of lordship, landholding, military service, and sworn loyalty, often gathered under the broad word feudalism. Though the arrangement changes by region and century, you are ruling promises, marriages, inherited grudges, unpaid favors, legal claims, and armed men who say, "My king," in a way that somehow sounds like a threat wearing perfume. At the gate, the lord greets you in fur wool. and confidence. Behind him stand sons, brothers, cousins, knights, chaplain, steward, and one elderly uncle who looks like he has invented 3 rebellions and is gently workshopping a 4th. The Lord kneels. He offers homage. He calls you his sovereign. You smile back with the calm expression of a man who absolutely has not noticed the 30 armed retainers nearby. Medieval diplomacy is mostly smiling at people who have enough spears to make grammar irrelevant. Inside the hall, you confirm his lands. He says the neighboring lord stole hunting rights. The neighbor says this lord sees cattle. Someone's grandfather promised someone a meadow. Someone's cousin has a charter, possibly old, forged, damp, or all 3. You nod slowly because a king must appear wise, even when the dispute sounds like 2 families have been arguing over the same cow since cows were invented. In return for land, this lord owes service. He must come when summoned, offer counsel, provide military help, and aid you in certain emergencies. You owe him protection, justice, and recognition of rights he will mention every time your eyelids look tired. This is negotiation wearing a sword belt. Your crown does not turn nobles into helpful furniture. They remain alive, opinionated, and annoyingly local. Historians still argue whether feudalism is a useful description of medieval society, or a later scholarly label that makes messy local relationships look more organized than they really are. Sitting in this hall, you understand why. The system is not a neat pyramid. It is more like a family group chat where everyone owns a horse, several weapons, and a different interpretation of the rules. You tour the castle because you must know what kind of problem you are dealing with. The keep is cold, high, and smug. The chapel smells of candle wax and damp stone. The storerooms hold salted meat, barrels of all, cheese, spare harness, and enough arrows to make peaceful loyalty feel like optimism with bad eyesight. A castle is not merely a home. It is a military statement with kitchens. It controls roads, bridges, river crossings, markets, and everyone's mood within 20 miles. So you decide what to do about castles. Reward loyal lords with them, seize them from traders, inspect them, garrison them, or forbid new ones if a lord starts building stone towers like a man collecting decorative grudges. In some medieval kingdoms, rulers try to restrict unauthorized castle building because one new fortress can change local power overnight. An illegal tower is not countryside decor. It is a tall complaint with arrow slits. A quirky tidbit hides in the wall. Many castles have garderobes, little latrine chambers built into the structure, often dropping waist-down shafts or outside the walls. So yes, while poets sigh about moonlight, banners, and noble romance, real castle life includes cold drafts, smoky rooms, and defensive toilets. Remember that coronation spoon? It suddenly seems elegant. Medieval luxury is strange private chapel, minstrels in the hall, and plumbing that declares war on gravity. At dinner, your real work begins. You seat rivals carefully. You praise one man's loyalty, another's hunting dogs, another's grandfather, because flattery is cheaper than cavalry and usually smells better. You invite young noble sons to court where they can learn manners, absorb royal culture, and quietly serve as polite insurance. You discuss marriages, because in the Middle Ages, marriage is diplomacy with flowers and witnesses. A daughter here, a widow there, a younger son matched to land, a cousin placed where he can be useful but not too happy. You cannot crush every lord who worries you. Crush too many, and the rest unite because rebellion suddenly feels like self-defense with snacks. Ignore too many and they learn that disobedience is affordable. So you reward publicly, punish carefully, summon councils, rotate offices, demand attendance, and smile while counting who arrives late. Late arrival is medieval sarcasm. A lord who misses your summons may blame poor roads, illness, flooding, a delicate horse, or a saint's feast day that appeared very conveniently. That night, you sleep in the guest chamber of a man who has sworn loyalty to you, which should be comforting in the same way sleeping inside a locked chest full of bees is technically secure. Curtains hang around the bed to keep out drafts, insects, and the feeling that everyone nearby is listening. Outside, guards change watch, dogs bark, and the rebellious uncle is probably muttering into his soup. Still, you have gained time, not permanent obedience. Because permanent obedience in the Middle Ages is a fairy tale told to nervous kings. You have placed your face inside the Lord's hall, your seal on his charter, your attention on his rivals. When he thinks of disobeying, he must remember the feast, the witnesses, the oaths, the gifts, and the fact that you noticed his uncle. At dawn, you ride away while the castle shrinks behind you, still watching like a suspicious stone animal. Every tower asks who truly holds power. Every oath is a thread. Every marriage is a knot. Every gift is bait wearing perfume. You carry yesterday's grain worries and today's castle worries toward the next duty, where you must pray, judge, perform holiness, and look chosen by God even if your main miracle is staying awake through another legal complaint. The road curves toward the cathedral town, and before you even see the towers, the bells begin shouting at the morning. Big bronze announcements wake bakers, monks, merchants, chickens, and one tired king learning medieval power has no snooze button. You ride through the gate in a cloak that looks noble from far away and smells faintly of horse from up close. Pilgrims crowd the street. Clerks hurry past with parchment. Incense mixes with frying oil, damp wool, stable air, and that classic medieval town aroma, hope, mud, and plumbing's long absence. Remember the castle with defensive toilets. Lovely. The town has fewer defenses and far more opinionated smells. Your first task is prayer, but not the quiet kind where you get a peaceful moment and think about clouds. This is royal prayer, which means prayer with an audience. You kneel in the cathedral beneath painted saints, tall arches, and windows glowing like heaven-installed decorative lighting. A mainstream historical fact rests beneath the chanting. The medieval church is one of Europe's most powerful institutions, owning lands, running schools, preserving learning, managing charity, judging cases, and shaping spiritual life. So you do not rule near the church. You rule with it, through it, beside it, and while trying not to get scolded in public. The bishop blesses you with a smile polished by politics. He wants protection for church lands, respect for privileges, old exemptions confirmed, and help in a quarrel with a neighboring abbey that has become, in monk terms, extremely spicy. You want his prayers, scribes, prestige, and ability to make your rule sound like heaven approved it after reviewing the minutes. Both of you smile. Both of you know the smile is basically a contract wearing teeth. Historians still argue whether medieval kings were restrained by religious ideals or used sacred language to make power look softer. From your knees, both answers feel annoyingly true. You believe, or at least you want to believe. When the bishop says your name near the altar, everyone listens. Holiness is excellent public relations with candles. After Mass, you move to judgment because you cannot spend the whole day looking sacred. The hall has benches, clerks, seals, witnesses, and enough petitions to bury a modest goat. Royal justice is one of your most useful tools. People may tolerate taxes, mud suspicious nobles, and bread with the personality of roof tile, if they believe the king can correct wrongs. You sit beneath a canopy, which makes exhaustion official. If modern offices had canopies, staff meetings might at least feel feudal in a tasteful way. The first case concerns a widow whose land has been seized by her late husband's cousin. The cousin claims custom. The widow claims a charter. The charter is produced, unfolded, kissed, doubted, reread, and inspected by men who stare at parchment as if it has personally insulted them. You ask questions. Your justiciar murmurs advice. Clerks scratch the words into record because ink is harder to bully and less likely to develop a cousin. You cannot judge everything yourself. No king has time to settle every quarrel over pigs, dares, mills, and tavern insults. But you must be seen as the fountain of justice, which sounds majestic until you realize fountains are expected to keep flowing all day. You send judges on circuit, confirm local courts, hear appeals, and keep important cases close to the crown. Law changes from region to region. Still, every judgment ties the realm a little tighter to you, like thread pulled through a large, argumentative blanket. Then come the rituals, because medieval rule loves ceremony the way a cat loves knocking cups from tables. You touch relics, you sponsor a procession, you give alms at the cathedral steps, charitably enough to be good and publicly enough to be remembered. The poor pass before you, old men, women with children, travelers, a limping soldier, a monk collecting repair money. Your steward counts coins. Your chaplain nods. Your treasurer looks as if mercy has stepped on his foot. A quirky tidbit rises from the reliquary. Medieval churches often kept relics with astonishing claims, from saints' bones to holy teeth, sacred blood, fragments of the true cross. and objects whose authenticity could become local rivalry. One town might boast a saint's arm, another a saint's head, and somewhere a tired pilgrim probably wonders how many spare body parts one saint is allowed before someone checks the inventory. Still, relics matter because people believe holy things carry memory, blessing, and hope. You touch the shrine and the crowd watches. If a healing follows, the story will run across the kingdom faster than gossip about a badly behaved baron. If nothing happens, the shrine remains powerful anyway, because hope is stubborn and famously bad at accounting. You have learned this already. Grain feeds people, castles deter enemies, and sacred performance keeps the kingdom imagining itself as more than hungry valleys and angry cousins. In the afternoon, you preside over a procession. Banners ripple, children scatter flowers, guilds march with candles. The bishop glides in embroidered layers like a holy wedding cake with authority. You walk slowly, because dignity is mostly controlled speed. Too fast and you look nervous. Too slow and someone steps on your robe. Medieval ceremony is the ancient art of not tripping while everyone assumes God is watching. By sunset, the cathedral glows gold and the court retreats to quieter chambers. You sign charters by lamplight, confirm a monastery's fare, and order an inquiry into a corrupt sheriff, who is shocked that corruption has been noticed. Poor delicate flower. You ask the bishop to write to a rebellious abbot with stern words polite enough to deny later. Medieval administration is diplomacy wrapped in wax seals and plausible deniability. When you finally remove your outer robes, your shoulders ache from holiness. That is the secret no sculpture mentions. Sacred kingship is heavy in the muscles. You think of the coronation spoon, the grain stores, the castles with stone teeth. Now you add bells, relics, widows' charters, processions, and the public art of looking chosen by heaven when all you want is a chair, silence, and perhaps soup. Night settles, the bells stop one by one. Somewhere a clerk sands fresh ink, and a widow waits for judgment to become action. You close your eyes, not quite sleeping, because beyond prayer and justice waits the business every ruler dreads, and every chronicler enjoys far too much: banners, musters, mud, and the expensive comedy of war. The first sign of war is not a trumpet, it is a bill, because history enjoys ruining breakfast. A clerk slides the parchment toward you with the expression of a man who has discovered misery and filed it in triplicate. Border riders report that a rival lord has crossed into your lands, taken cattle, and claimed he is defending an ancient right inherited from a grandfather nobody can identify. Another messenger says your cousin is gathering friends, which is royal code for please stop chewing, the family problem has acquired horses. Yesterday, bells and relics taught you holiness. Today, war teaches you that holiness still needs horses, arrows, wagons, cooks, blacksmiths, emergency oats, and enough coin to prevent freelance robbery. A mainstream historical fact rides beside you. Medieval armies were usually temporary forces raised through feudal obligations. Household troops, mercenaries, town militias, and paid service rather than permanent national armies in the modern sense. So no big red army button, you send summonses. You promise pay. You remind nobles of the oaths they made under flattering candles. Then you wait while half explain that their horses are lame, their boarder is nervous, or their mother is suspiciously unwell. The mustering field fills slowly. Knights arrive in bright surcoats over mail, priests arrive with blessings, and merchants smell profit through fog. Infantry come with spears, bows, axes, shields, and faces that say they would rather be at harvest. You cannot blame them. Harvest rarely has archers. You walk among captains and lords, trying to look brave, measured, and not like someone wondering whether the enemy accepts apologies. Too far from danger, and men whisper that you are soft. Too close, and one unlucky arrow can turn succession into a family wrestling tournament. You remember those nobles from the castle hall. Now you need their swords, like asking your least trustworthy neighbor to hold your ladder. Historians still argue whether medieval kings went to war for honor, dynastic claims, religious duty, defense, profit, or because powerful men were bad at indoor voices. You feel the answer muddying your boots. The raid must be answered. Your borders must not look snackable. But honor, reputation, law, vengeance, and accounting all march together, each claiming to be sensible. The army moves at the speed of hunger. Roads dissolve under wheels. Rain finds every gap in your cloak. Horses need grain, men need bread, ale, and sleep. A heroic charge lasts minutes, feeding an army ruins weeks. If anyone writes the Ballad of the Oat Supply, you will sponsor it personally. After days of mud muttering, and one wagon accident involving cheese nobody forgets, you reach the enemy's castle. It stands on a ridge, walls dark with rain, banners snapping, gate shut with stone smugness. A castle is not merely a building, it is a political opinion with plumbing. You could assault it, bold, dramatic, short, and possibly a cautionary mural. Or you could besiege it, surrounding the place and waiting until hunger, fear, negotiation, sickness, or boredom does what courage cannot. Siege warfare is the medieval art of making everyone miserable until someone signs something with a shaky hand. Camps spread beyond bowshot, ditches are dug. Fires are lit, tents sag like tired laundry. Engineers discuss timber, ropes, ladders, and machines like people who think hurling rocks is a career. Siege towers, battering rams, mangonels, trebuchets. These sound magnificent until you see the carpenter's oxen and complaints. War is expensive bad carpentry with banners. A quirky tidbit clatters into the scene. Some medieval sieges involve launching unpleasant objects over walls, including dead animals or filth, because humanity invented distance delivery and asked, can we make this worse? Keep it gentle, this is still bedtime. Remember the defensive toilets under siege, they look like luxury infrastructure. Days pass. Councils gather in a tent smelling of wool, wet leather, smoke, and pretend confidence. Your knights urge honor. Your treasurer urges thrift. Your chaplain urges mercy. Your stomach urges stew. Scouts report a possible relief force nearby. The castle commander sends a message claiming he never rebelled and merely misunderstood the map. Then the fighting comes in pieces. Archers exchange shots, men drag mantlets forward. Stones slam into walls with hollow thunder. Your men cheer when a tower cracks, then groan when rain turns the approach into soup. Glory feels different when your boots make wet sucking noises. Very regal, not going on the tapestry. At last, the enemy commander asks for terms. Harshness might terrify enemies, but it may also convince every castle in the realm to fight until the treasurer starts squeaking. Mercy may win loyalty, but too much mercy may invite ambitious cousins. You negotiate surrender, the gate opened. Hostages delivered, cattle returned, fines paid, rights reviewed, and the commander perhaps imprisoned, pardoned, or ransomed. Ransom is another strange lesson. Noble captives are valuable property in war, because dead nobles pay poorly. One moment a knight is trying to unhorse your cousin, the next he is discussing payments like a banker in chainmail. Medieval war is muddy and weirdly administrative. When the castle yields, you enter under your banner. The courtyard smells of smoke, damp straw, fear, and relief. You appoint a loyal castellan, inspect stores, and order repairs. Victory is not the end. It is paperwork on broken stones. You pay troops before they help themselves, dismiss restless men before they become a problem, and send messengers so your story outruns the rumors. That night, fires shrink, armor hangs dark, and rain ticks against canvas. The kingdom has seen you answer force with force, but you have seen the cost: grain eaten, coins spent, fields trampled, alliances strained, roads ruined. You remember the coronation oil, the storehouses, the cathedral bells. War touches all of them, then returns home wearing your name. By morning, the banners are folded, the wounded are carried gently, and the road home waits in soft gray light. You have survived war without looking completely foolish, which is practically a strategic masterpiece. Peace now waits inside your own court, where smiles are sharper than swords, cups are watched, hairs are counted, and the quietest footsteps may matter most. Peace returns like a very tired guest who forgot to wipe his boots. You ride back through your own gates beneath banners that look heroic from far away and suspiciously stained up close. The court welcomes you with music, candles, bows, and that special royal silence where everyone is pretending not to inspect who came home richer, limping, promoted, annoyed, or dangerously popular. You have survived war without looking completely foolish, which in medieval politics is practically a miracle. Now comes the harder part: surviving your own court. The battlefield had arrows, mud, and men shouting at you. The court has smiles, cups of wine, marriage proposals, cousins, and compliments so polished they should probably be registered as weapons. A mainstream historical fact settles beside the roast meat. Medieval courts were not just pretty places where nobles wore velvet and dramatically leaned on furniture. They were centers of government, patronage, diplomacy, household management and political competition. Your court writes documents, hears petitions, arranges marriages, rewards loyalty, spreads rumors, and eats an alarming amount of poultry. It is basically a government office, a family reunion, a theater stage, and a gossip factory all trapped inside one smoky hall. You sit with your advisors. The chancellor brings charters. The treasurer brings war expenses and looks personally offended by numbers. The marshal reports who fought bravely, who arrived late, and who claimed his horse was sick at the exact moment courage became inconvenient. Your confessor asks about your soul. Your physician asks about your stomach. Medieval kingship is intimate in all the least relaxing ways. Then comes the matter of heirs. If you have a son, everyone smiles as if the future is secure, which is adorable. If you have two sons, everyone starts quietly calculating how many castles it takes to ruin Christmas. If you have daughters, they become precious diplomatic treasures, which is a very elegant way of saying everyone suddenly cares far too much about their marriages. If you have no children, every cousin in the room begins glowing with unwanted possibility. Historians still argue whether medieval succession crises came mostly from unclear laws, ambitious nobles, family rivalry, or the simple fact that medieval life had the durability of a wet candle. You do not need to pick one explanation. You are living in the deluxe package. A fever can change a kingdom. A wedding can move a border. A baby can calm 3 provinces or create 17 new arguments before learning to walk. So you plan? You educate your hair in reading, writing, law, piety, languages if possible, and the ancient royal skill of listening to advice without accidentally promising land to everyone in the room. You choose tutors carefully. Too weak, and they teach nothing. Too powerful, and they become replacement fathers with better castles. Parenting is difficult. Royal parenting is parenting while several dukes watch the crib like investors. Marriage planning is worse. A royal wedding is not just romance in expensive sleeves. It is a treaty with music. You consider foreign princesses noble daughters, widows with claims, cousins with land, and people whose family trees require a team of monks and perhaps a rescue rope. Everyone speaks of love, loyalty, and Christian harmony, while quietly measuring dowries like merchants inspecting cheese. At dinner, you watch the cups. Not because every medieval court is secretly full of poisoners from a cheap tavern story, but because fear of poison is very real. Rumor itself can be nearly as dangerous as poison. A king who believes every whisper becomes cruel. A king who ignores every whisper becomes a cautionary tale told by nervous servants. So you appoint trusted tasters, chamberlains, guards, and servants while accepting the uncomfortable truth that trust cannot simply be boiled clean like soup. A quirky tidbit slips in with the spices. Some medieval elites believed in bezoar stones, hardened masses found in animals and prized as protection against poison. Imagine ruling a kingdom while someone solemnly hands you a fancy stomach rock and says, "This may save your grace." Wonderful. Nothing says stable monarchy like emergency goat jewelry. Your unofficial spy master brings quieter weapons, opened letters, tavern rumors, merchant gossip, monastery whispers, border reports, servant observations, and poems that praise the wrong cousin with suspicious enthusiasm. Intelligence is not always cloaks and daggers. Sometimes it is laundry, ledgers, and one cheerful groom who hears everything while brushing a horse. Honestly, the horses may know more state secrets than half the council. You must punish plots carefully. Too soft and conspirators become confident. Too harsh and you create martyrs with better public relations than you. A captured plotter might need prison, exile, trial, pardon, or a monastery where ambition goes to wear plain wool and cough near manuscripts. The wrong punishment creates legends. The wrong mercy creates sequels. Medieval politics has no unsubscribe button. Then comes memory. You commission chronicles, confirm charters, repair churches, endow monasteries, support towns, and place your seal on laws that may outlive your voice. This is not vanity alone, although vanity is definitely in the room. Wearing embroidered sleeves and asking for better candlelight. Royal memory is political architecture. If people remember you as just generous, brave, and chosen, your heir inherits more than land. He inherits a story sturdy enough to sit on. So you perform continuity. You hold court at great feasts. You appear beside your children. You touch relics. You hear petitions. You repair bridges. You settle widows' claims. Remember the spoon that survived greater treasures. Small things matter as signature. A public blessing, a child shown at the right ceremony, a lord seated carefully away from another lord before soup becomes civil war. Years pass like candle smoke, your beard grays. Your knees remember every cold chapel stone. The crown still hurts, but now it hurts familiarly, like an old chair that complains every time you sit down. You have learned that ruling is not one grand victory. It is repetition, oath, meal, road, court, prayer, tax, gift, warning, apology, feast, funeral, baby, bridge, another tax, another apology, very majestic, extremely tiring. At last the final duty approaches quietly. You must leave the kingdom able to continue without your hand on every seal. You summon your heir and speak not like a hero from a tapestry, but like a man who has read far too many petitions by bad candlelight. Feed the realm, watch the lords, respect the church, but do not vanish beneath it. Use war sparingly, 'cause mud always sends an invoice. Trust slowly, judge publicly, reward service, never underestimate cousins. And for the love of every saint in the calendar, count the grain, the chamber grows softer. The fire settles into red gold embers. Outside, horses shift in the stable. Clerks stack finished rolls, servants lower their voices, and somewhere a monk finishes one last line of your reign. You have not ruled perfectly. No medieval king does, unless the chronicler is being paid extremely well. You made mistakes. You trusted too early, doubted too late, raised taxes people cursed, spared one lord who did not deserve it, and punished another who perhaps deserved a gentler hand. Yet the fields were sown again. The bridge stood, the bells rang, the hair was known, the realm fragile and stubborn, continued. Now the crown is lifted away, not with ceremony, but with tenderness. Its weight leaves your brow, and the room seems lighter, as if the stones themselves have finally stopped holding their breath. You no longer listen for hoofbeats in the courtyard, no longer count candles at the council table, no longer wonder which smile hides ambition with excellent table manners. You are only a tired traveler at the edge of a long road. The castles fade into silhouettes, the granaries rest in the dark, the cathedral bells wait for morning. Your name softens into story, then into dust, then into one quiet line someone reads by lamplight centuries later. Breathe slowly now, let the old roads fade. Let the banners fold, let the hall empty gently, one whisper at a time, until even the last clerk stops scratching at parchment, the last horse settles in the straw, and the kingdom sleeps under the soft, strange mercy of night.